We have a lot to thank Hidetaka Miyazaki for when it comes to modern day RPGs, seeing as he is the driving force behind Souls games. He's brought us titles like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Sekiro, Elden Ring and several more. Honestly, without this wave of challenging but rewarding bloodbaths, the gaming landscape would be very different indeed. And while all of From Software's games are about as AAA as they get, they have a profound effect on the indie scene as well. Many budding developers have tried their hand at creating Souls-likes inspired by Miyazaki's creations, and while they might not have huge teams or budgets to compete, there are a number of indie Souls-likes that are phenomenally fun to play and very impressive in their own right. So with that in mind, we want to dive into the collection of indie Souls-likes out there and show you what the little guys in gaming have to offer. So if you have exhausted the FromSoft catalogue, this may be the list that you need. This is Indie Game Culture's list of the best indie Souls-likes that you need to play. In at number 1 we have Mortal Shell. We begin with a game that tries to do the unthinkable in a Souls game and takes the player's shield away. This begs the question, without a shield, how are you meant to defend yourself from the brutal bosses within the game? Well, let me tell you, in this game, you are the shield. It sounds strange, right? Well, I suppose it is a little, but in practice, it works surprisingly well. In Mortal Shell, the player has a unique ability to cast themselves in the shell of a fallen warrior, and you'll be able to harden, casting yourself in stone to defend against the perils that await you in this hostile world. Not to mention, each shell comes with its own helpful quirks. This is Mortal Shell's most eye-catching feature, but it's also a traditional Souls-like with a fascinating world, great bosses in combat, and a multitude of fun classes to experiment with. It's one of the more unique Souls-likes on the market, and that alone makes it worth taking a look. In at number 2 we have Fesia. Next up we have a game where harnessing the power of disease and death is the name of the game when it comes to defeating behemoth bosses. In Fesia, the player dives into the psyche of Corvus, an alchemist who represents the last hope of the region corrupted beyond repair. Only by recovering his repressed memories will he be able to halt the corruption and save Hermes from complete chaos and ruin. However, to make that a reality, you, the player, will need to harness the power of plague weapons, embrace your raven powers, and defeat a slew of terrifying monsters that stand in your way. The standout mechanic of this game is the dual approach to combat, where you will need to deal healthy amounts of both standard and plague damage if you want to succeed, and this means a lot of trial and error to find a playstyle that suits you. But the good news is that Fesia is accommodating of all types of player. It's another indie Souls-like that is very impressive in terms of scope and refined combat. The story and world building may leave you a little bit wanting, but all in all, Fesia is a great Souls title that you need to try. In at number 3 we have Ashen. Annapurna may be best known for their walking simulators and narrative-driven artsy games, but it may shock you to find out that they actually signed off on a Souls-like, and it's actually pretty good. Ashen is a game that takes place in a harsh and unforgiving world, where players will encounter all manner of enemies and wildlife, which is often hell-bent on maiming and killing you if you get too close, and your goal is to complete quests, build your small settlement into a thriving survival colony, and carve out an existence in this brutal, ever-changing world. On paper, it's a by-the-book Souls game, but the unique twist that this one offers is passive co-op, akin to games like Journey, where you will encounter other players on your adventure, and you can choose to ignore them, or make them your ally as you brave the world together. It's a Souls game that takes what it wants from a tried and tested formula, but liberally veers off the beaten path to great effect, making it an indie gem well worth playing. In at number 4 we have Bleak Faith Forsaken. Next we have Bleak Faith Forsaken, a game that I include on this list for anyone who wants a game that rigidly sticks to the Souls formula for better or worse. Our entries thus far have highlighted indie Souls games that flip the script and try to do something new and exciting, but Bleak Faith Forsaken is a title that plays the hits where Souls games are concerned, but despite this focus on some things that might be seen as generic, if you want more Dark Souls, this is a great option, as it does the tried and tested stuff very well. The game's dark and twisted world looks phenomenal, the subtle environmental lore of the Omni structure is a joy to delve into, the bosses are grotesque and challenging, and the combat feels fast and fluid, and achieving mastery will require a lot of effort. It's an indie Souls-like that I feel was written off for not pushing the boat out enough to be different, but when you consider just how good FromSoft games tend to be, gunning to be a close imitation isn't really a bad thing at all. In at number 5 we have Eldest Souls. When you boil it down to its finest parts, what do we love most about Souls games? The bosses, right? Well, what about a game where you get all the subtle world building and fast-paced Souls combat, but it's all bosses all the time? That's the setup of Eldest Souls, a game in which you will need to push back against the old gods as you take them on one by one to restore peace to the world. But as you would expect, they won't go down without a fight. This 16-bit masterclass is all about making every moment count, using your acquired celestial abilities to your advantage, and basking in the tranquility of the world during those short moments between chaotic battles of life and death. If you like the overworld exploration Souls games tend to provide, Eldest Souls may be a little bit too compact for you, but if you want boss battles one after another, then this is a must buy. In at number 6 we have Salt and Sanctuary. I told myself that I wasn't going to include Metroidvanias on this list, mainly because if I did, then I would need to mention Hollow Knight, Blasphemous, Ender Lilies, and many more. However, one exception to the rule that I am going to make is Salt and Sanctuary, because if you're looking for a 2D Dark Souls, this is pretty much it. From the familiar UI layout to the use of a shield to cower behind, Salt and Sanctuary offers a world steeped in subtle dark fantasy lore, which feels like an extension of FromSoft's own creations. I often say that Metroidvanias lean into their Metroidvania format because they want to hide the fact that the 2D combat present isn't all that great, but in the case of Salt and Sanctuary, this is far from the case. Every encounter, whether it be a mob enemy or a testing boss, feels like a tactical and thoughtful inclusion, and as the game goes on, your class, loadout, and approach to each fight matter more than ever. The switch from 3D to 2D may take some time for veteran Souls fans, but I assure you, braving this switch over will be as rewarding as any defeated boss. In at number 7 we have Lies of P. I hesitate to include Lies of P due to its ties to Nexon, but considering the size of the studio that worked on this gritty Pinocchio epic, it would be kinda rude to leave them out of the running. Considering the clear ties between Disney and the Lies of P main character, you would think that this one would be a little too light-hearted to ever succeed as a Souls-like. However, when you get into proceedings, you immediately see that Roundy Studios has managed to make a truly unsettling and immersive world in the form of Krat. Then as for gameplay, this is about as close to a Bloodborne sequel as we will likely ever get, as Lies of P leans into fast-paced, risk and reward gameplay, where moving fast, parrying and dodging are essential if you want to make it through this game. I still do have a hang-up with the developer for adding a patch after release to make the game significantly easier, as the difficulty was part of the charm, but all in all, Lies of P is probably the most refined non-FromSoft Souls game we have seen perhaps ever. In at number 8 we have Dark Mouse. Of all the games listed, I would wager that this is probably one that you guys have not heard of at all, and it's criminal because Dark Mouse is one of the most unique, creative and interesting Souls-likes on the market. In this game you play as Mouse as they wash up on a new shore and must battle tooth and tail to survive. It's a top-down Souls-like where you'll become more competent with each battle, each death and each new discovery, and will need to master the surprisingly deep combat mechanics to outsmart the game's clever AI. The only downside is that the game pretty much has no story or narrative worth investing in, but the good news is that the gameplay is so engaging that you probably won't even mind. Considering that this game was completed in full by a one-man dev team, it has no right to be as good as it is, but here I am singing its praises anyway, which should be a green light to play this game as soon as possible. In at number 9 we have Pudo Regalia. Our penultimate entry is a bit of a wildcard entry, but bear with me here because it may allow you to uncover a platforming Souls mashup that you never knew that you needed in your life. Pudo Regalia is one of those games that despite its quality hasn't been given its flowers by many, and that might be due to the lack of marketing that the game had on release, but many gamers have slowly learned about this game through word of mouth, and the general verdict is that this game is a certified hidden gem. This title plays like a lot of old SNES and Dreamcast 3D platformers, asking players to use precise inputs and leaps to traverse this world made up of chunky polygons. When you aren't bouncing around, you'll also have to face off against powerful enemies and bosses in combat that isn't too far removed from Souls games. It's hard to pinpoint what makes Pudo Regalia so special. It might be the visuals, the movement, the open-ended level design, or the fact that even playing the game makes you an official member of an exclusive club of players who even know about this game. Whatever the reason, the conclusion is the same. You need to play this indie gem. And in at number 10, we have Broom. Lastly, we have a short and sweet Souls-like that focuses on simplicity, brevity, and minimalism to create a Souls adventure unlike anything within the subgenre. Broom can be played and beaten in about an hour, but what an hour it is as you battle bugs and beasts in this pixel-perfect title. This game will feel immediately familiar for Souls fans as you start with the bare essentials and work to improve your stats, kill monsters, and find helpful items to improve your build, but the joy comes from the game's boiled down and simplistic approach to its mechanics. It's stripped back in every sense, but one thing that remains on par is the satisfaction that comes with each action. There isn't much else I can say here other than that Broom is a pocket-sized Souls game that may provide a breath of fresh air that veterans of the genre need. You'll struggle to find a more unique Souls experience than this, so take me up on my offer and try this one out real soon. So there you have it guys, 10 indie Souls-likes that offer experiences that are unique and in some cases on par with some of the FromSoft games that have given birth to the genre. I hope that this list has given you some new titles to add to your wishlist, and if you did like this, please like, subscribe, comment, and do all of those things to get the algorithm working in our favour. It would mean the world to me, but until next time, I've been Cal, and I'll see you then.